yeah, a lot of you already know me. My name is Stritzinger, and I'm a member of the Triangle Interactive Arts Collective, the amazing co-working space, and also the nonprofit that puts on this event along with Oak City Indie Games. And it's just such a nice space, great community, so join it if you haven't already. If you're looking into getting into indie games, highly recommended. But anyway, I will get started with my talk. So here's some photos to give you a little teaser of what I'm going to be talking about. And there's an image of my game as well. I'll go into more detail about that. But this talk is about full immersion and reflections on an international game research trip. Okay, so quick recap on my background. So I started out learning computer animation and visual effects, and I went to Clemson, and I ended up going into the world of startups in the San Francisco Bay Area for about 7 years or so. And then most recently, I ended up working on the Oculus system software team. The VR headset a lot of you have probably used. I was part of the team that did the software interface for the home environment and like all the system user interface. So I got to work with a lot of amazing people and do a lot of software prototyping in Unity. And I ended up deciding to leave and start my own company to focus specifically on how to use that technology for educating about environmental justice and climate solutions, because I wasn't seeing any content like that out there, and I thought there needs to be some. So that's what I've been doing for the last few years. I've been working on a game, and also my company is called Hara Studios, and I've done some contract work for some other amazing educators who are doing similar climate and environmental focused content, interactive media. So these are just some photos of my past work. So this talk will start out just with a rough recap of the game, the project, what it's about for anyone who hasn't seen it. If you want the full deep dive on that, come to my booth and I'll go way more in detail. But this talk is going to be more about like the logistics of the trip itself. And I wanted to share this with you all because there was so much planning that went into the process that I thought if anyone out there does need to plan a similar trip, maybe it'll give you some ideas on what to expect, or just kind of whether or not you want to go for it. And here's some more cute photos of puppies. These are my dogs. Yeah, so after I go over the trip, logistics, all that, I'll talk about some challenges I encountered, unexpected experiences, and then some resources for you at the end. And there'll be a little time for Q&A also in case anyone has any questions, burning questions. It'd be great if you can hold to the end and then we'll pass around a microphone or something. So I thought it was a bit funny as I was putting together my slides that there's this recurring theme of immersion. Not just like cultural and language immersion. I'm doing a trip, an international trip, and I spent the summer in Korea on Jeju Island. So I got a chance to do immersive language learning for the first time. It's the longest time I've ever been out of the country. So that was amazing. And then I was literally immersed in the ocean physically. And then the whole purpose of the trip was to develop a virtual reality experience and make sure that it's authentic. So I was very busy giving a lot of VR demos, including to my friends and eventually even the governor of Jeju Island. So Waves of Jeju Diving School is the game that I'm currently developing, and it's a cozy simulation game where you actually get to become a student at a Haenyeo School on Jeju Island, and you learn all the traditional ecological knowledge and the diving skills necessary to collect shellfish and become an environmental steward. And there's always the great bonus of having a cute puppy as your companion. So my favorite thing about the whole project is that it started out really with adopting 2 dogs from Jeju Island. That's the whole reason I learned about Jeju Island in the first place. And you can see Peach and Chewy here. They were both strays just wandering around the island, and after adopting them, I started wondering, where did they come from? Their fosters kept posting these beautiful photos of Jeju Island, and I thought, I need to learn about this place. And the more I learned, I thought, how cool would it be to do a game about a dog, a stray dog from Jeju Island, and tell a story from their perspective. And that led me down a rabbit hole to learn all about the Jeju Haenyeo culture. So some of you may have seen recent Korean dramas that showcase the amazing culture of these women. They're traditional freedivers on Jeju Island and some other parts of Korea. And for hundreds of years, they've been diving without any kind of breathing equipment to collect shellfish and support their families. And they also do this with a mindset of environmental stewards. So they're not just going out there harvesting as much as they can. They very much are in a very reciprocal relationship with the environment that they're part of and making sure that they maintain that ecosystem. In 2016, the Haenyeo were actually designated by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. And if you're curious, this book in the middle, the Haenyeo book, is by a National Geographic explorer, an amazing underwater photographer, and I have that at my demo booth. If you want to look at some of the gorgeous photos, it was a huge part of my inspiration for this project. And here's a quick video.
Waves of Jeju Diving School is a cozy simulation game where you leave your corporate job and train with your instructor Yoonji to become a Haenyeo freediver on Jeju Island. Your goal is to make your way through diving and stewardship lessons so that you can be accepted into one of the local Haenyeo collectives. You'll even be able to change the style and colors of your equipment to suit your personality or mood. As you explore the breathtaking scenery, you'll learn about traditional ecological knowledge, ocean safety, how to read weather conditions, and more. The adorable school dog, Ollie, will keep you company as you progress along your journey, and you'll develop a stronger bond as you get to know one another. You'll discover Korean folklore and experience magical moments of connection with fish and other creatures as you spend more time in the ocean. Are you ready to dive in?
Cool, so that's a quick overview of the story, the game, what it looks like. And I wanted to start out by just giving you a sense of why I even wanted to do this research trip in the first place and what my core goals were. I had a lot of goals, but I was spending a long time there, so I was able to, I think, accomplish most of them pretty well. So the first one was I needed a deeper understanding of the diving, the free diving and stewardship techniques of the Haenyeo, and I wanted to experience it firsthand because I'm creating a game about a Haenyeo school, and I wanted it to be as authentic as possible. And I'm not Korean myself, but I feel it's very critical for this game to be developed by people with Korean heritage. So throughout the process, I've been collaborating internationally with some contractors. I had 2 developers based in Seoul who helped with designing the characters. And as I raise funding for the game, I'm going to be collaborating with a lot of the people that I met in Jeju, including some of the Haenyeo students that were part of the Haenyeo school I attended. But even with that collaboration, I still felt I needed to go there, see it for myself, and really feel it. Like, what does it feel like to be underwater and hold your breath? And is it terrifying? How difficult is it? All the little details about where do the shellfish hide, and what do they look like, and like how long can you stay underwater before you start to run out of breath? Those details I really couldn't get from documentaries. I wanted to go deeper on the history and culture of the Haenyeo, form partnerships with the local organizations so that I can get local community involved and make sure the game is accessible, and incorporate the feedback as much as possible from those community members so that they can be a part of the process. And on top of that, I wanted to continue developing my game just based on all the observations physically being in Jeju, while applying for funding and learning as much Korean as possible. It's a lot. It was maybe too many goals for a trip, but I attempted it and I'm pretty happy with the outcome. So one thing that I didn't anticipate was actually getting accepted into a Haenyeo school. I discovered that there was a Haenyeo school and decided to apply thinking like, I probably won't get it, but why not, just see what happens. And I actually got in, so that was perfect. It couldn't be a better reference for this project, and I'm just so grateful that they allowed me to go as a foreigner, and I ended up being the only foreigner, but everyone was so supportive. So to prepare for this trip, it really started weeks, months, and even years before, to varying degrees. And around 2 years before I actually went, I had already started taking Korean language classes, so I was pretty familiar with the alphabet. I could read all the signs, and it's a phonetic alphabet, so it's kind of quick to jump in. I read books, watched documentaries, and learned to cook, which came in a lot of very handy while I was in Korea. All the ingredients are Korean, so I was able to cook without feeling overly culture shock during my time on Jeju. And I had to make sure I had housing. That was tricky because I didn't actually know until a month before classes started whether I was accepted into the diving school. And as all of you know, you probably plan your international trips like 3 months, 6 months in advance. So 1 month felt like very intimidating, and I ended up just deciding, hey, I'm gonna assume that I'm only gonna be in Jeju for 1 month, and if I get into the diving school, awesome, I'll figure out the rest of the Airbnb stuff later. So I kind of just had to roll with it. On top of that, the default visa for US citizens in Korea is only 90 days, and that's 3 months, so this class is actually 18 weeks, and that was longer than the visa, so then I had to figure out, I actually need to either get a visa, or what I ended up doing was going to Japan for a few days, and then coming back to Jeju. So all kinds of crazy things happened, and it was super stressful, not knowing if I was going to be able to get back to Jeju to complete my classes, but it worked out. And I even got CPR training and practiced swimming with my camera in the pool before I went, because I wanted to make sure I knew how to use the equipment before I'm in this really new, confusing environment. So this trip, all these planning details and all the things that I did added up to around 10,000, which is a lot of money. I'm very privileged to have had savings and revenue from my past contract work to be able to support this project. But I really felt that it was critical to get this part of the project right in order to make the game and for it to be a success. So I took the opportunity to do some language immersion and do a whole, deep dive, fully immersed in Korea. So there's some funny challenges that came up as I was there that I didn't anticipate, and luckily none of them were too stressful. But one of the big ones was the main app that people use in Korea is called Kakao, and it doesn't have translation built in by default. But this app was the primary method of communication for the Haenyeo School. So my around 40 classmates, you can imagine chatting all week long in a group, and you're trying to keep up with the messages. And I had this endless loop of screenshotting and copying and pasting to translate, because I still have a very basic level of Korean language skills. But it worked out, and I kind of got used to it and adapted. Payments are surprisingly hard in Korea. You kind of have to get residency and have a Korean phone number that's attached to your residency. It might be different in other countries. And then there's very different norms around gifting, particularly when it comes to business meetings. A lot of times, the first time you meet someone, you need to bring a gift. It's different for men and women. Usually you get like a bottle of whiskey or something for men, and then maybe some hand lotion for a female gift. So there's a lot of like logistics into like, oh man, I'm like, I forgot to get a gift for this meeting, now I need to go shop for that. So it's a very different mindset, and I think that's like the beautiful part of traveling abroad is you realize like there's no one right way to do things, and you know, maybe here we should give each other more gifts too. I don't know. But yeah, I had to explain to my classmates like that it was a bit difficult for me. And one of the other funny things is in Korean culture, the first thing they do is ask, oh, how old are you? And in the US, for women especially, that can be seen as rude. So it took me time to adapt to people just like, you know, straight up asking me your age, and I was afraid to ask people their age, but you have to, otherwise you don't know which words to use to speak to them. There's actually different ways to conjugate verbs based on whether that person's senior to you, older than you. There's also the challenging aspect that the Korean government, even though they're interested in my project, they weren't allowed to fund a US-based company. So I may need to look into setting up a branch of my business in Korea. And that's a whole thing I didn't have time to investigate while I was there. So I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna figure this out later. It's a good problem to have, right? The last funding is I had to figure out how to ship my equipment back, and you can imagine this giant buoy. It's like this big, won't fit in your suitcase. And I was so lucky to have an amazing classmate who went to the post office with me, and we figured out how to like shove it into two of the largest boxes they had and shipped it home. it was just little things like that can get really stressful. I couldn't leave my equipment behind, you know, it's so special, I had to bring it back. So this is like the rough timeline, and I decided to count how many airports I visited on the way there, and it ended up being 9 different airports. So it was a pretty exhausting trip. And yeah, I arrived late April for meetings in Seoul, and then started in Jeju in May for the beginning of my classes. And then I was there all the way until the 1st of September. So the Haenyeo School classes, I went to a school called Jeju Hansupul Haenyeo School, and they have classes every Saturday for 18 weeks. So it wasn't something you can just get all done in 1 month. It wasn't a compressed course. But that actually made it really nice because the people who had full-time jobs, had kids, were able to participate. And some students even flew in from Seoul every week just to take this class, which is exhausting. But they did it, and I'm just so happy that I got to experience it and meet all these amazing people. We learned so many skills that I'm going to be incorporating into the game over the next 6 months to a year. The demo you see now doesn't really reflect any of the things I learned over the summer. Unfortunately, one of the things I didn't have as much time for was the actual development while I was there. But I figured, hey, I can do that anywhere, so I might as well focus on the things that I can only do here in Korea while I'm there. So this is like a typical week schedule. I had meetings occasionally in Jeju City, which was like an hour bus ride from where I was staying. So not too bad. I got the hang of riding all the buses, and it ended up kind of being pretty easy once I got the hang of it. And then I tried to spend some time, actually having fun. I made a surprising number of friends. Even met an American Haenyeo diver. She's actually, she's from here, but she lives there. She taught English for years, and then she became a Haenyeo. And I got to see kind of different glimpses of different villages and different parts of the island as I did these exploring activities with my friends. And then I wanted to mention a few things that really were only possible to understand once I went there. I really love that we got the chance to make a taewalk, this buoy you see, the pink on the right, that's called a taewak, and we actually learned how to make these from scratch with the raw materials. And it took about 2 days with help from a lot of the Haenyeo and other community members. I actually didn't do much of it myself at all. I had so much help, but it just opened my eyes into how difficult it was to actually make these. And I was surprised to find that each village had a slightly different way of tying the knots and different patterns for the ropes and the way that they connect it. And I thought that was fascinating. I thought there would be like one right way to make this taewak, but it turns out it's not that way. And I didn't realize until I went there that the net actually opens from the bottom to release all the shellfish. And that's kind of a critical thing for the game to be accurate, right? So you couldn't really see that in the documentaries when people are swimming and there's not like a clear shot of this equipment. But it was all these little details that I can't wait to put into the story and the characters. A lot of times the Haenyeo would just swim up to us during a lesson and just like hand us raw shellfish and be like, eat this. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm gonna eat and swim at the same time. You know, I can't say no to a Haenyeo. So that was a fun experience. It's also difficult to dive when there's like 30 people swimming in a 10-foot radius because you don't have great peripheral sense when you're moving up and down, and it's easy to get kicked in the head or kick someone else without thinking about it. And my favorite one here is discovering how fast these elder Haenyeo can like move across these really dangerous rocks. And that's something I noticed with people in Jeju generally, like they're all super comfortable just like running across these pretty sharp rocks, volcanic rocks that could easily cut you or even kill you, like if you fell the wrong way. And yeah, I was really struggling to keep up with them during our lessons, and it was hard not to laugh sometimes. And this is what it looks like when you try to take a selfie underwater. These are my teammates. I think it took us like 4 attempts. Okay, attempt number 2.
여기서 내가 먼저 들어갈게요. 괜찮아.
There's 2 more attempts, and then another 2 years. But the last ones were the best ones, so I wanted to make sure to show those. And here it goes. So another exciting thing that happened while I was there that definitely wouldn't have happened if I didn't go for 4 months was I met some amazing people who decided they wanted to advocate for me, and they went out of their way to introduce me to so many people, including press, including the government of Jeju Island, as well as the president of the Jeju Haenyeo Association and the Jeju Contents Agency. And I was able to get MOU agreements with these 3 different organizations as part of my time there to kind of showcase that we want to collaborate and become partners to make this project happen, to help preserve and globalize the Jeju Haenyeo culture. And I'm just so, I still can't believe this actually happened. I got to give a demo to the governor of Jeju Island, and I started crying during that meeting because he said, we love this idea and we want to fully support what you're doing, and we want to make a documentary about it. And I just couldn't believe my ears, just felt too good to be true. So on the bottom left, you can see a screenshot of that documentary that they filmed. They actually just put it up on YouTube in September. So if you search for, I think they titled it "Why an American Fell in Love with Jeju Haenyeo." If you search for that, or you can find this video. It's about 10 minutes long, and it goes way more in depth on the nitty-gritty details of the diving school experience. And I was also just so lucky to have so many other types of press while I was there, including KCTV and YTN interviews. Those are also on YouTube. And several different articles in the local newspapers about the project story and how I want the game to support the local community. And I was just happy that they understood I want this game to give back to the Haenyeo, right? So a portion of the game revenue is going to go to contribute back to the Haenyeo community directly. And I'm just excited also to incorporate it maybe into some educational settings like museums or schools. And I did talk with a few of those groups while I was there as well. So I'll probably have some other future trips to Jeju to kind of continue those partnerships. And two of my favorite memories that I had over the summer with my teammates at Haenyeo School were diving at night. That was just the most otherworldly, amazing, surprisingly relaxing experience for me. It should be scary to be in the ocean at night, but when you have 30 women that are now your new best friends, and you have a bunch of lights, and we had just graduated from Haenyeo School. We just had the time of our lives swimming around, and my classmates even managed to catch multiple octopi underwater at night. So that was pretty amazing. And we even did some plogging, which is collecting trash along the shoreline. And I did that actually 3 times while I was there with some really amazing volunteer groups. So for you to plan your trip, you definitely want to make sure you know at minimum the basic phrases of the local language so that you can order food and hire a taxi or just, get around and not feel like you have to panic. Understand the cultural norms, how to show respect. I learned I need to shake hands with 2 hands, not just one, in order to be polite. And bowing, I ended up learning to do that automatically after a while. All these little details, thinking to get your business cards made with the foreign language, I remembered that right at the last minute, and I'm so glad I did, because every meeting in Korea starts with, here, let's exchange our trading cards. And even more so than in the US, they really love business cards. So I was so lucky I thought to do that. And yeah, start your visa application at least 3 months before your trip. I was a little, it was difficult for me because I didn't even know if I was going to be accepted into the school until a month before. So hopefully you won't have that situation. And I wanted to end with a cute story. I actually got to meet the fosters of my dogs and hear the stories of where they originally came from. And I got cute puppy photos for the first time ever. And it just made me so happy. So I wanted to share those. Chewy, I found out his nickname is the Gentleman of Gumnum. And Peach came from Sagwipo, which is the southern part of Jeju Island. So they actually came from opposite sides of the island. Yeah, and these are just some photos of Gwaji Beach. That's near where I was staying, and it was just, I couldn't believe I had this spectacular trail to walk on 5 minutes from where I was staying, and I highly recommend it if you ever go to Jeju. But yeah, I think I went a little over time, so if anyone has questions, I would love to to hear. And I can pass you the mic, so just raise your hand.
What's the coolest thing you caught when you were in the diving school?
Coolest thing I caught? I didn't catch a whole lot. I caught, so there's the main shellfish in the area we dove is called soda. It's like a conch shell. And that I caught a lot of. But a lot of times we had to actually release them because it was out of season. So one day I caught a big one and I was like, yes. And then she's like, oh, you have to throw that back. I was like, really? But it just shows you like the mindset, like all the Haenyeo villages, they each have their own territory. They're very rigid about what they can and can't catch at different times of year. I caught a lot of seaweed and trash. What else? A few other smaller shellfish that I'm blanking on the names of those, but yeah. A lot of my classmates caught octopi. I never caught one, but I don't think I have the heart to do it after watching my octopus friend. Yeah, they're just amazing. But I did get to see an octopus camouflage itself, which was incredible. Anybody else?
I'll just plug, I've watched the documentary, it's really cool.